Hello everyone, thanks for tuning in to today's second video, doing GWV Sunday Round-Up for today's second video. So as was on Sunday, got an eclectic mix of this and that. We're looking at things like the QBO, so activity, sea surface temperature, anomalies, SOI, Arctic oscillation, overland Arctic oscillation, and weather next week, 10 days as well. And I shall get on with that for you very shortly. Just say that the first video released today was the spring forecast. So the GWV spring forecast has been released. Very exciting day. Of course, we only released like 4 long-range forecasts a year, so when we release, one of our long-range seasonal forecasts, always quite an exciting day. So yeah, spring forecast is out. Have a look and see what we're forecasting for spring 2021. If you would like to do that, we'll be live streaming from 6 o'clock tonight. We'll have our Sunday evening live stream. Bring some summer data with that, almost certainly from CFSV2, I would have thought. And yeah, so that'll be coming up for you this season. We'll also have a look at 12Z as well, of course. Right, so let's get on with Sunday Roundup, then. If you're enjoying the videos, by the way, please smash your like button and let YouTube know that you're enjoying it. Make sure to subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much, everybody, for doing that. Right, let's start off then with the QBO today. So I thought I'd just bring an update what's happening with the quasi-biennial oscillation. So we know that Westerly QBO phase continues in the troposphere. With this from NASA, you've got to think that like this is the top layer of the atmosphere just here. That's like the stratospheric level at 10 HPA. 30 to 50 HPA is where we're in the troposphere. That's the boundary level of the atmosphere where weather is taking place. So westerly QBO at the moment in the troposphere. Easterly QBO continues to be lurking in the stratosphere. If we zoom in, we can see that we may be seeing further strengthening of the easterly QBO in the top of the atmosphere in the stratosphere. These blue colours here look like they're intensifying a little bit, don't they? Trying to push downwards in from the stratosphere into the troposphere. So the easterly QBO continues to lurk, is possibly strengthening in the stratosphere, but of course down here in the troposphere, that's where the westerly QBO continues. Maybe those signs of this westerly QBO begin to get a little bit more sort of raggedy with these bars. So maybe we're seeing the end, drawing to the end of this westerly QBO phase. But at the moment, we have looked back before, of course, and then it came back last year. But at the moment, around 50 HPA, this line just here, the westerly QBO goes on. But the easterly QBO possibly, what do you think? Let me know in the comments. Possibly the easterly QBO is strengthening in the stratosphere. It looks like the colours are getting more intense, doesn't it? Those blue colours look like they're beginning to get more intense in the stratosphere. We'll keep you updated with what's happening with the QBO, of course, but it is very, very confusing, has been for some time. Right, so this is how things are currently looking in terms of solar activity. This is how the solar disk looks on outside this day from solarham.net. Got one sunspot region just here in the very far northeastern limb of the solar disk. Solar activity, despite that, solar activity is at low levels and is expected to become very low over the next 3 days. This is the GWV solar activity tracker, updated by our good friend James Atwill, keeper of the solar tracker, updated to 28th of February, updated to today. So the orange line depicting each individual day's worth of sunspot activity. You see we have had some sunspots over the past day or so, although we are seeing sunspot numbers dipping down again at the moment with the orange line just there. The trend lines are the thick green and thick red lines. They just continue to be at a very low level, and even these spikes, are really, really low level of activity. Really, our last sort of proper major spike was back in November. Looks like that was a false start to solar cycle 25, actually. We thought at that point maybe the solar cycle was beginning to ramp up, but solar activity has fallen back into really low levels again. It's a slow start to solar cycle 25, as we had a slow start to solar cycle 24. Remember, we've got Solar Sunday coming up for you on Easter Sunday. So Solar Sunday on Easter Sunday. That's going to be very exciting. We only do 1 or 2 Solar Sundays a year. Oh, look, it's Gav Clink today from Richard. Thank you, Rich, for turning me into Clink. How cool is that? Right, so this is the Spotless Days and the current Spotless stretch from my good friend Richard. So 0 days in terms of the current Spotless stretch, because we did have yesterday sunspots, but for 2021 overall we have had 53% of the year without any sunspots. That's comparable to 2020, which had 57% of the year. That's 208 days. So percentage-wise, you know, we're still quite close to where we was last year, despite nearly being 3 months into 2021 and a further 3 months into solar cycle 25, of course. Our solar minimum year was in 2019. That had 77% of the year without sunspots. So that was where we reached true solar minimum. So you see, we are like a couple of years now, or heading up towards 80 months anyway, in solar cycle 25, and we're still at a very low level of activity. It's all very similar to what happened with the beginning of solar cycle 24, which again had a very slow start through 2009 and into 2010. You know, slow start to solar cycle 24, and it's pretty comparable really what's happening with the start of solar cycle 25. Thank you so much to Rich for that, and for turning me into Mr. Eastwood. Thank you so much, Rich, and also to James as well. Right, so let's have a look at sea surface temperature anomalies then. So, of course, this has been looking in the oceans last week. We did last week's Sunday Round-Up. We've got our 3 areas of interest. We've got the Equatorial Pacific there, the ENSO region up the North Pacific over here, and then we've got the North Atlantic just there. Indian Ocean is over here. We might have a look at the IOD in next week's Sunday Round-Up, actually. Someone's asked me about the IOD, what's happening with the Indian Ocean dipole. We'll perhaps have a look at that next week. Right, so that's how things were looking when we did, because we featured the Indian Ocean dipole for the first time during our winter updates, didn't we? So we haven't really spoken about the Indian Ocean and the IOD since we left off on winter updates. So I think we might have a look at the IOD next week just to see what's going on there. Right, so that's how the Pacific and the Atlantic were looking last week. We did last week's Sunday Round-Up. Let's have a look at the very latest then. This is it. Let's deal with the ENSO region first of all. La Nina continues. The signature for La Nina, this cold and average area of sea surface temperature anomalies from Peru to Indonesia goes on. So again, if we go back to last week, that's how things were looking last week. This is how things are looking this week. Possibly we're seeing a bit of a strengthening actually of the La Nina signal here through the central western part of the Equatorial Pacific Ocean. I think the colours have got more intense over the last week. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. I think that's like a slight intensification of La Nina that has occurred again in the past week, which is quite unusual because now we should be running down the clock on the La Nina, beginning to see it weaken as we move towards spring. But if anything, over on a week by week basis, it does fluctuate a little bit week by week. But if anything, on a week by week basis, we've possibly seen the La Nina signature strengthening a little bit over the past week. Still at like a week to borderline moderate level, I suppose, though, in the central and western Equatorial Pacific. Going further northwards, that's how things looked in the northern Pacific Ocean last week. Let's go forwards to this week. This is how it looks. So very little change up there. Remains a little bit cooler than it has been for a few years up in this northeastern part of the Pacific Ocean. And then finally into the North Atlantic. That's how things looked in the North Atlantic last week, from Greenland down to the tropical Atlantic. Through here, that's how it was all shaping up last week. Let's have a look at the latest. Here we go then. Very little change in the Atlantic either. Looks quite warm, doesn't it, through the tropical Atlantic again, although there is a cooler area appearing off the coast of Africa. But generally the tropical Atlantic looking quite warm, and also generally quite warm in the North Atlantic as well. So just generally, this was a situation at the beginning of the winter when we left off on the winter updates. We said that it's like the warmest Atlantic that we've had for quite a few years, probably going back to 2012. And it's just carried on really through the winter. So the Atlantic remains in quite a warm type state at the moment. Southern Oscillation Index looks like this. Remember, this is just an index that's measuring the atmospheric state. You know, it's looking at air pressures between Darwin and Tahiti, and then creating an index based on those air pressures. It doesn't drive anything in its own terms. But when the SY is negative, we've got negative numbers, then the atmospheric setup is reflective of El Nino. When the SY is positive, the atmospheric setup will be reflective of La Nina. So, looking at the daily returns, this is from Queensland Government, of course. Looking at the daily returns, we have had a little bit of negativity, which is something we've not seen for a little while, actually. So remember, negative numbers are like the atmospheric setup being reflective of El Nino, which is something we haven't seen for quite some time. We did have some strongly positive numbers earlier in February. So the 17th of February comes out plus 28.77. The 18th of February comes out plus 29.40. 19th of February comes out plus 22.82. Very positive numbers. But in the last 2 or 3 days, I've seen some negativity. So the 24th of February comes out at minus 3.46. But 25th of February is actually very reflective of an El Nino type state at minus 14.79. And the 26th of February is also quite reflective of an El Nino type state at minus 9.56. 27th of February goes very slightly positive, more or less neutral. And 28th of February, because they're ahead of us, of course, in Australia, at minus 5.43. Again, a little bit reflective of El Nino. So a bit of a change in the SOI over the past few days. It's probably only temporary. This La Nina signal, let's go back to see some temperature. So La Nina signal looks very, very well embedded, doesn't it? So you know, it's probably just a deviation. Within any sort of long-term trend, you will get some deviation, and I suspect what's happening in the past few days, in the past week, it's just a deviation, like, to the overall La Nina setup. It has been enough to reduce the SOI 30-day average, though. Just a few days ago, 30-day average, which is the red line, was at around plus 15. Now it's gone down to around plus 11. So quite a reduction over the past few days with those negative numbers in the 30-day SY average. Because the 90-day average, which is the yellow dash line here, that moves much less because it's a 90-day average rather than a 30-day average, so it's much less prone to day-to-day. It's much less prone to day-to-day changes. So that's holding quite steady. They're both in positive territory anyway, and La Nina goes on for the time being. CFSV2 is forecasting, and so forecast looks like this, and forecasting La Nina to continue, really. So we've got our dates on the bottom in monthly periods, temperatureometers on the side. The all important number is minus 0.5, half degree below average in terms of the anomaly. So you can see that, you know, we're around sort of La Nina to, very slight La Nina to ENSO neutral conditions at the moment. The black dash line hovers around there and then dips down in towards La Nina territory, weak La Nina territory anyway, through the summer and into the autumn. What I want to say, though, is that the latest ensemble members from the CFSV2 ensemble pool, which are these blue lines just here, they're more towards ENSO neutral, or maybe even onto the warm side of ENSO neutral, slightly El Nino-esque. Through the summer. So that might be a little bit of a change that's appearing within the CFSV2. But the red lines just here, they're the older ensemble members. But the more recent ensemble members, the latest ensemble members, which are like the blue lines, they're more towards ENSO neutral. So maybe we won't see La Nina picking back up through the summer, and maybe we'll shift towards El Nino. Who can say? We've got to get through the spring predictability barrier first, and we'll know more by around May, June, where ENSO is going. Arctic oscillation looks like this in terms of the observed and forecast. Again, similar to the SOI, the AO is just measuring atmospheric pressure. It's not driving anything in its own terms. It just tells what the atmosphere is doing. So through most of the winter, really from the 1st of December, interestingly, the black line here shows that the AO, the Arctic oscillation, was negative and reached the most negative period of the winter back around the middle part of February. Had all of that cold weather. That's when the blocking sort of peaked. Since since then, the AO has been trending upwards, and we're now in very positive territory with the Arctic oscillation. Actually, as we come to the end of mid-tropical winter, today, of course, 28th February is the end of mid-tropical winter. As we come to the end of the winter, meteorological winter of 2020-2021, we do so on a very positive note with the AO, which tells us that the blocking has reduced greatly, and we've replaced all of the blocking area of high pressures that caused quite a lot of cold weather through the winter across Northern Europe and North America. We've replaced a lot of that now with lower pressure, and we've gone back to a more typical type pattern within the Arctic. GFS ensembles are forecasting the AO to stay in positive territory as well. We do get a dip in the next few days down towards neutral, but then we pick it back up again into positive. So it looks like we have entered like a long-term positive AO phase now. After being in a long-term negative AO phase, it looks like we've now moved into a long-term positive AO phase, which is a different type setup as we're going into the spring. The NAO, very similar. So the NAO observed and forecast looks like this. Again, through most of the winter, the NAO was in a weekly negative state, which is what we predicted in our NAO forecast that we released back on the 14th of June 2020. I think the NAO forecast has held up quite well. We will be evaluating our winter forecast, and as part of that, the NAO forecast in a week or two's time. So I think winter forecast has done quite well. I'm very pleased how the NAO forecast came out, as it does look as though through most of the winter the NAO was in a weekly negative phase as we expected. As the AO shifted into a positive phase, so too did the NAO, and we're now weekly positive with the North Atlantic Oscillation, and the GFS ensembles are keeping us around neutral to weekly positive with the NAO as we go through the first week to 10 days or so of March. So yeah, both the indexes have gone into a positive phase, which is different to what it had for most of the winter, but blocking has reduced as we come to the end of winter, and on we go now into spring with positive AO and NAO condition. Doesn't mean it can't get cold again, though. It is going to get cold over the coming few days. So let's do some forecasting. These are the GFS upper air temperature and precipitation ensembles. Let's go to Birmingham today. So the red line, 30-year upper air temperature average for Birmingham. Of course, we're starting off significantly milder than average with the upper air temperatures at the moment. They really are very, very mild, but we are having, a bit of an inversion within this high pressure we sat under, which means that by night it's actually getting quite cold at the moment, despite the warm upper air temperatures that we see there. By night, nights are still very long, of course, and with clear skies, we are sort of generating frost and even a little bit of fog. There's a little bit of a gruesome twosome going on at the moment of frost and fog. However, by day, because the sun is very strong, then we do start to realise those warm upper air temperatures, and so by day it's relatively pleasant and mild, but by night it is cold where the skies are clearing. It all becomes much more simplified by the end of the week as temperatures will drop, so it looks like we have a colder spell coming up as we go into the end of the week and into the weekend. It will be mostly dry with bad, although there could be a few wintry showers on the eastern coast, but watch out for the chance of some really quite significant overnight frost next weekend if the skies are clear. Then it looks like we just go into a rather cool period, actually, into the second week of March, at the middle of the month, just rather cooler than average, to be honest. So the first half of March is shaping up to be quite chilly, potentially. Precipitation-wise, it gets more unsettled as well. Starts off very dry. This precipitation spike here, associated with a drop in temperature, that's probably a cold front or something pushing through the country, maybe bringing some showery rain. There's a few precipitation spikes after that as we go into this colder weather. They could be wintry showers, of course. But basically, the next sort of week or so, it's going to be dry, really. But then as we go to the second week of March, much more unsettled. The precipitation spikes are coming back quite significantly. So it's a bit of a change taking place into the second week of March, into something much more unsettled with bouts of rain and potentially rather cool as well. Temperature anomalies from the 28th of February to the 8th of March are going to be slightly cooler than average in the UK and Ireland. Precipitation anomalies from the 28th of February to the 8th of March are going to be drier than average. So a bit on the cool side and dry. later info, Matt, from earthnorthschool.net shows that we're under an area of high pressure at the moment. So we've got this ridge sitting over the top of the country, the mild west-southwest. This is a mild air mass within the ridge. It's a mild ridge, but the mildest of the air with the west-southwesterlies are being pushed away to our north and west at the moment. And under the high pressure, that's why we're getting these cold nights. But we're plenty of sunshine by day, you know, pleasantly mild days at the moment. This is how the UK Met is looking for Wednesday. Still on a map ridge of high pressure on Wednesday, but a bit of a trough in the west. Could bring some showers there. Into Thursday, the high pressure begins to reposition up towards Iceland. We start to pull something a little bit colder in from the north and from the northeast. So that's Friday. Bit of an easterly flow for England and Wales, possibly bringing some wintry showers onto the east coast. We are in a high pressure zone, so generally it's going to be dry. It does turn colder at the end of the week. High pressure sat over country for Saturday, as far as we get to UK Met, 144 hours. Mainly dry, but cold with overnight frost. That's how things look with GFS midnight run. So again, high pressure really dominates into the middle part of the week, relatively mild. Then the high pressure repositions up towards Greenland and Iceland. Later in the week, we pull wind into the east of the northeast, brings some wintry showers onto the eastern coast, potentially with that east wind. It will get colder later in the week, and there could be some quite sharp overnight frosts under this high pressure as we go into the weekend. Into next week, the ridge begins to break down. Low pressure starts coming off the Atlantic. This will change more on settle weather that we saw on the ensemble graph a moment ago. So in comes the first batch of wet and windy weather there on Tuesday, the 9th of March. And then we're often running into a very unsettled spell. This is like a period of gale force winds pushing through the country, potentially there on the 11th of March. They're extending range now, so unreliable. But if it came off, that would probably bring some gales to southern western parts of the country. Quite cold as well with that, with winds in from the northwest, so like typical classic cold zonality, really this. And then as we run up towards the very end of the GFS run, again staying quite unsettled, and this low pressure plunges south right at the very end, threatening to turn wind back into the north again around the middle of March. But definitely more unsettled, wetter and windier, and rather cool as well through that second week of March. GFS 6 there, which is updating us, or has been updating us, we've been speaking, looks like this. Again, mostly dry on Wednesday under high pressure, mostly dry on Thursday, but winds turning into the east, becoming colder from the east. The high pressure is over top of the country on Friday. Again, looks mainly dry in that area of high pressure, but it will be cold with some overnight frost. Into the weekend, the high pressure sticks around the country. Again, mainly dry, but quite cold with risk of overnight frost. Then into the early part of next week, the risk gradually breaks down. Low pressure heads in off the Atlantic. We start to turn wetter and windier, running up towards day 10. Quite a deep area of low pressure down our southwest, bringing proper wet and windy weather across the country. Quite cold on the northern side of that low. Might be some snow into northern parts of the country as well. The low pressure rattles through as we go through to Thursday the 11th of March, and we're in quite a cold and showery northwesterly wind. This might deliver some snow to northern parts of the country. Moving into a very extended range, so this is Friday the 12th of March. Next area of low pressure waits in the winds to bring some more wet and windy weather in from off the Atlantic Ocean. Then higher pressure begins to build to our southwest as we head up towards the middle part of March, maybe starting to settle us down. And, of course, becoming milder as well with that ridge building up from the southwest. That's quite a nice onset of spring by the middle part of March. We've lost all of that cold, wet and windy weather, or cool, wet and windy weather. We're set into something drier and milder from the Azores high then. GM looks like that. Again, a ridge over country on Wednesday. A lot of dry weather. High pressure then reorganises itself up towards Greenland and Iceland. Through Thursday and Friday, we're pulling quite a cold northeasterly wind. So yeah, end of week into weekend, mainly dry over that area of high pressure, but quite cold. Into the early part of next week, again, we've got more signs of ridge breaking down here. High pressure begins to slip way to southwest. Low pressure develops around Iceland. Start to turn wetter and windier up to day 10 with the GM. Looks like this second week of March is now shaping up to be rather cool, wet and windy, I think. And the ECM looks like that. Again, a ridge through the country on Wednesday, bringing a lot of dry weather. And the high pressure sends itself up to Greenland and Iceland. We're pulling colder winds from the east through Thursday and Friday. Maybe some wintry showers in the east, but the emphasis will be on dry weather with that. But it will be cold at night, and there could be some really quite significant overnight frost. into the following week. So it's Monday the 8th of March. The ridge is beginning to weaken. Low pressure trying to come in from off the Atlantic. The ECM also starts to turn as more unsettled, but a colder variety really, with the low pressure tending to be further southwards. Actually pulling in winds from the east again by the time you get through to day 10. A little bit different compared to the other model output, with the ECM looking cold and unsettled potentially at day 10. Now, this is how the precipitation type forecast looks based on that ECM run from tometeo.com. Loads and loads of dry weather, of course, coming up over the next few days. A few showery bursts there later on in the week down the south. Even a suggestion of a little bit of snow there from the far southeast corner. Won't amount to too much. It's mainly rain. And then we go into that colder air from the northeast as we get through to the end of the week and weekend. Possibly bringing a few wintry showers down the east coast. But the emphasis will be on dry weather, I think, through the end of the week and into next weekend. But with overnight frost. Then rain starts to move up from the southwest. Might be a little wintriness in with that. We're back into quite cold east winds by day 10. These are the options on the table within the ECM ensembles today for day 10, which gets us to the 10th of March. We have 15 members of the ECM ensembles with very unsettled low pressure over top of the country there. 12 with low pressure to our south and east, higher pressure to our northwest. And winds are in from like a colder sort of east-northeasterly direction. So that one is turning cold. It does include the operational run. There's 10. Oh no, it's 12 doing that. 12 with deep low pressure over top of the country. Going to be very unsettled with that one. And another 12 here with low pressure just to our west. And again, in come those westerly winds. In 2 weeks' time, this is the option that we've got. There's only one. And it looks unsettled. 51 out of 51 members of the ECM ensembles for the 15th of March, showing low pressure over top of the country. That second week of March is shaping up to be more unsettled now and possibly quite cool. CFSV2 finally, so these are 500 millibar heights broken down into week periods. The first week period takes from the 28th of February to the 6th of March. The coming week will have high pressure centred over top of the country, bringing a lot of dry and fine weather in the week ahead, starting off quite mild and then getting a little bit colder later. Week 2 is the 7th through to the 13th March. Now, the CMS is keeping this second week of March mainly settled with high pressure dominating. So at odds with all the shorter range model output, this just shows high pressure continuing. All of the unsettled weather is pushed away to our north. I think we're shaping up for a more unsettled second week of March, but CFS is saying no to that idea. Week 3 is the 14th to the 20th of March with high pressure then just to our southwest. Again, mainly settled, bringing in a mild west-southwesterly flow. With that, looks quite spring-like. And the high pressure fest goes on into week 4 as well. This is the 21st, 27th of March. High pressure right over top of the country and lower pressure out to the northwest. Jet streams push northwards. So again, a lot of fine weather in with that, mainly dry. And pleasantly warm, I would have thought, with winds coming up from like a southerly, southwesterly type direction. March overall with CFSV2 looks like this. 700 millibar height only has a big area of high pressure right over top of the country. So a very, very settled month indeed, if that is correct. The March temperature anomaly is coming out above average, slightly anyway, above average, so a rather mild month is predicted. And the March precipitation anomaly also comes out significantly drier than average. A very dry March with a lot of high pressure. Very spring-like March, if that is correct. And that brings us to the end of the Sunday Roundup. And of course, talking of spring, don't forget that the spring forecast has been released. So you'll be able to see what we're predicting, for this spring. With GWV Spring 2021 forecast. So have a look at that. As soon as you sign off on the Sunday Roundup. Thank you so much, everybody, for doing that. Right, that's it for this week then. I'll be back later on with our live stream. So from 6 o'clock, we're going to be live streaming. And I think we'll bring some summer data with that. We'll have a look at CFSV2, I think, for summer and for the next 6 months and so on. So I'll see you live at 6. But for Sunday Roundup, that's all for now. And thanks for watching.